Republicans across the state of South Carolina are expected to go to the polls tomorrow to pick their candidate to face off with Annie Andrews, the Democrat, in November. Now, this comes as Lindsey Graham passed away last month, and that has opened this opportunity for Republicans to have a special Senate primary election where Lindsey Graham's sister, Darlene Graham, has been appointed to the race, or to the seat. She's running for this race against a couple of other Republican opponents. Darlene Graham having the endorsement of President Trump, and we're going to see how this really happens to face off tomorrow, and what may happen in this primary election to face off with Annie Andrews in the November election. And we're coming on just a few months away from the November election. So the fact that Republicans still aren't 100% certain who their nominee is going to be in November should be at least somewhat concerning to them. But with all of that in mind, let's take a look at the polling conducted for this primary race tomorrow. Now, it's important to note before we continue that in order for this primary to be sealed tomorrow, that a Republican, one of these, has to get over 50% of the vote. That's likely not going to happen, as you can see from the polling numbers on this race. But yes, that is required in order for it to not go into a runoff election. And like I said already, it's likely not going to happen. The runoff will happen 2 weeks later if no candidate gets over 50%. Which again is likely to not happen. So with that said, let's take a look at some of these candidates who are the top three, really. Darlene Graham, obviously appointed to this seat, running for a full 6-year term to replace her brother in the Senate for a full 6-year term instead of just the last 6 months of his term. Ralph Norman ran for governor, former Congressman Russell Fry as well. They're tied at 20%, Darlene Graham at 33%, according to Quantus Insight's Republican-leaning pollster, August 5th through the 6th. Now, this race is going to be very important, and it's important too because Democrats have had the upper advantage here almost, because they have had an opportunity to run a campaign. Although Democrats don't quite know who they're running against, they already have their candidate picked. They've had their candidate picked for a couple months now. So Annie Andrews set to be that Democratic nominee, and she's the only Democrat running in this race. She has the opportunity. Republicans over here trying to essentially fight themselves. Russell Fry and Darlene Graham and Ralph Norman being the top ones, having an opportunity to really see who the Republicans are going to pick to be their nominee. Now, the interesting thing about this is that if this Quantus Insights poll is correct, say Darlene Graham is ahead, she's not at 50%, but she is ahead, and then it's Ralph Norman and Russell Fry. The question is who gets that second place runoff spot, because only one of them will, and it will be the one with more votes. Will it be Ralph Norman, who already ran for governor but lost that race? He also got cut off in third place for the governor's primary. Or will it be Russell Fry, who maybe gets that second place position to go the next 2 weeks until the official nominee is selected? Now, it's important to keep in mind, too, at this point, we're going to be in September. So just 2 months, or we'll be nearly in September, I should say. So just 2 months out from the November elections at that point. And Republicans will still just then have had their Republican nominee selected. So obviously not the best news that there are so many Republicans running. It would have perhaps maybe been better if they had been able to select this nominee tomorrow, but of course not very likely that will be the case. If we go to Polymarket, the odds of there being a nominee selected outright tomorrow is 2%, and the odds of there not being is about 98%. So very significant there as well. People are betting on the fact that there will not be a Republican nominee selected tomorrow. So that will be important to watch as well, but I ultimately don't think that that's going to happen. I think the real question is who gets that second place spot to go on to the runoff, and do they really have a shot against Darlene Graham 2 weeks from tomorrow? If we go to the primary winner itself, Darlene Graham sitting at about a 40%, Russell Fry sitting at about a 48.2%, Ralph Norman 25% according to Polymarket. So if this is the case, Russell Fry set to face off against Graham in that official runoff primary in a couple of weeks if it comes down to that, which, like I said, again, we fully expect to be the case. So if that's the case, then Russell Fry, Darlene Graham will be set to face off again 2 weeks from tomorrow, I believe is the correct date anyway, for the official primary winner. Of course, Darlene Graham still leading that, and the question is can she get over 50% 2 weeks from tomorrow? If she is able to do that, then she will be that Republican nominee. I know some people in South Carolina are a little skeptical towards her. She is Lindsey Graham's sister, and Lindsey Graham, although has won in the state of South Carolina time and time again, it appears a lot of South Carolinians didn't exactly love Lindsey Graham. And the question is, are they going to like his sister much more? Big question, but I guess we'll have to wait and find out. But again, this is going to be key for Democrats too, because Democrats have an opportunity here to really make the case to Republicans across the board that to make the case to Republicans that maybe perhaps it's time for change. Democrats may be arguing that they have an opportunity here to make change with someone like Annie Andrews and Darlene Graham being just appointed to this race, just given the seat, and then if she wins the primary, just essentially handed that to her as well. Question is, are Republican voters, are independent voters going to appreciate that across the state of South Carolina? I don't know. We're going to find out. But the polling in this race on the general election side of things is really important too. Russell Fry, if he wins this nomination, sitting 3 points behind Annie Andrews, according to Public Policy Polling, Democratic pollster from July 16th through the 17th. We have no polling with Darlene Graham in it. Ralph Norman actually beating Annie Andrews by a percentage point. So it seems Ralph Norman may be the best between those two to go on to the runoff. But ultimately, if Polymarket is correct, Russell Fry will go on into that runoff election if that happens tomorrow, and that would be against Darlene Graham for the November election race. So we'll see what happens, but ultimately, good news for Democrats, but questionable news for Republicans. Of course, Democratic pollsters, so take that with a grain of salt, if you will. But if this is true, Annie Andrews really having some sort of opportunity, at least, to win here could be significant for Republicans across for Democrats across the board, a state that Democrats before might not have thought was on the list of potential seats. South Carolina in 2020, when Lindsey Graham ran for re-election 6 years ago, won this race by 10.3%, despite polling having him down in this race. So another thing to keep in mind too is, are Democrats going to be in a position where polling says that they can win, but they ultimately aren't going to be able to do that? That's another big question. I think the odds of Democrats flipping South Carolina are very low. Frankly, I don't think that it's highly likely. But if there's a year to do it, it would be a Democratic environment. And if there's another year to do it, it would also be in a year where Republicans are going to be late in the game to pick their nominee. So with all of this in mind, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Do you guys believe that Darlene Graham, my apologies, is going to win this primary? And if so, does she serve the best opportunity to face Annie Andrews in the November elections? Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. As always, I love reading through those and seeing what you guys are thinking on the races as well. Love getting to do that and reply to you guys and just have conversations there. But if you haven't already, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. Thank you guys again so much for watching.